So, good morning, good evening, good late night, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I wanted to start off by introducing a couple of folks. Here's why. Next week, I will be in Jackson Hole hiking. Um, David Meinz and Dr. Jesus Vega will be covering for me next week. They're going to be talking about a healthy brain. So a couple of comments about both of those individuals. And Gilbert, if you could go ahead and put them on the screen for us on the stream. So David Meinz will be covering the general content today. David is a registered and certified dietitian, but that's really not all he does. As we know, lifestyle is king. More important than any medication, any supplement. And the diet part of lifestyle is the most important. So diet is critical to health. David doesn't spend a lot of time one-on-one with folks because he's been busy all of his career as a public speaker. From Denver to Dubai, from Kansas City to Kuwait City, he's been globetrotting, doing his thing, helping people understand how to live a long and healthy life. I've actually done a couple of presentations with David, and some of you who've been with the channel for a couple of years may remember that David graciously agreed to do some CIMTs for us where he was doing speaking events for other reasons. David's got a very interesting hobby. As you'll see, David, there's a background. It looks a little bit cluttered, but you'll see why it looks cluttered. David is in the about 1.5 miles below the surface of the earth in a secret station where he keeps the upcoming global history and museum of the history of supplements. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot today. A very interesting and fun topic. The other person I wanted to introduce is Dr. Jesus Vega. Many of you may have already met Dr. Vega as well. Dr. Vega is a well-trained, very smart preventive medicine doctor. He's actually managing our content now. And he's managing the chronic care health program, the chronic care management program. So those of you who will be getting involved with us, volunteering, and then getting involved on a regular basis with the Medicare program may meet Dr. Vega as well in terms of helping manage a lot of the communications that are coming out of our office and our team. We've got several other people which we'll be introducing later, but I wanted to be sure and introduce David and Jesus today because when I'm out next week, David and Jesus, Dr. Vega, will be covering brain health. Now, let's go on and talk a little bit more about our presentation for today. As we said, today it's about supplements, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the humorous history of supplements. Previous topics that we've covered. If you're new to this channel, what we do is we look at the one thing that causes more death and disability in this world, especially in developed countries and many developing countries as well. It's called prediabetes, insulin resistance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But previous topics that we've covered go into that space. Vitamin K2, what's that got to do with insulin resistance? Go back and take a look at last week's topic, and you'll see. A new frontier in the treatment of diabetes and weight loss. That one was fairly technical, covered a lot of the new modern medicines that are just acting like gangbusters, doing great things in terms of impact on diabetes. It got technical, but we got a lot of really good reviews. And science about homocysteine, methylation. If you ever heard of poor methylators and you thought, oh, that's silly, or if you heard Z-Dog say, yeah, well, you know what, it's real, but it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter if you're already in the ICU, but it does matter if you want to avoid getting in the ICU. So we tell you why that's the case. Now, the science is really clear. If you depend on your primary care doctor, at least here in the United States, they're not going to know how to diagnose these. Over 2/3 of primary care doctors, family practitioners, internists, cardiologists play this role quite often. They don't know how to diagnose prediabetes or insulin resistance, let alone manage it. That's information coming out of Hopkins, Mayo, other big sources of medical science. So, unfortunately, with the thing that's most important to most people's health, you don't have a lot of guidance. That's what these courses are for. We've charged prices for them in the past. We're making them free more and more, and they have to do with insulin resistance or prediabetes, plaque. How do I assess plaque? Should I go to the doc and say, "Hey, doc, like most people, I'm worried about whether I have a heart attack. Let's get a stress test." That's not the way to do it. This book will tell you how to do it. And then there's a special concept called cardiovascular inflammation that I've heard David talk about quite a bit, and many others. If you have an interest in it, you hear a lot about it in the Bale-Donine content. That one item, cardiovascular inflammation, just confuses a lot of docs, and we make it very clear for you in that course. So within about 2 hours for each of 3 courses, you can end up knowing a heck of a lot more than 2/3 of the doctors here in primary care in the United States. If you're interested in our content and getting it from other channels like Locals, Rumble, we have those. We have Facebook, Twitter as well. And as we will mention, the YouTube channel membership program, which you can join right there, continues to grow. So thank you so much. These subscription programs, we've been back and forth on. They came out very, very popular. One of the questions was, would they survive the transition into Medicare, the Medicare programs? And the answer is yes, they will. They're actually going to become far more important than we would have thought. You know, Jesus, I just remembered we don't have our slide yet for updating the folks on what's going on with the Medicare program. I'm going to ask you if you'll work with the rest of the group while I'm out next week to get that up there. Just to let you know, our first day of Medicare for the state of Florida is it the 22nd? Jesus, do you remember?
I think it's September 18.
18. It's over the next week or two. We will actually start accepting Medicare and should start accepting Medicare Advantage as well for the state of Florida. That state will be a pilot for us for the rest of the country. We've already had several people sign up for the chronic care management program. It's a program where it's prevention. It's not the usual thing that we're used to in the United States. It's where you're in touch with your doctor's office every day if you want, or once a week. We have software set up where we will be contacting folks, and you'll be able to contact us anywhere from once a day, including weekends if you want, to, again, once a week. Now, that sounds like a lot. It's not that much. In fact, we've timed it. Other groups doing this have timed it as well. It takes 45 seconds to respond to that contact. So what's the purpose then? Well, sometimes if you've got something going on, it takes more than 45 seconds. For example, hey, I'm having problems with my diet, or I need a prescription refill, or I'm just struggling. This medication is making me feel tired, and I'd like to talk to you about, talk to somebody about this medication, or I'd like to talk to somebody about some issues with my lifestyle. I'm having some challenges with my sleep. Now, why do that? Because it's crystal clear. Some more evidence, more research, more science has come out just over the past year looking specifically at this exact program. Medicare calls it CCM, chronic care management. People that participate in that program, even though it's a 45-second response most of the time, stay a lot healthier. Now, why does that matter to Medicare? These people aren't going into the hospital because they're sick. Why does that matter to you? Who wants to go to the hospital because you're sick? How can you do that? Have a little bit better communication with your doctor's office. Now, why aren't all doctors doing this? That's a discussion for a later date. But as most of us know, here in the United States, the fee-for-service programs have gotten doctors, doctors are like anybody else. They do what you pay them to do. And for the past 100 years, when insurance got started, you paid them to write a prescription. So what do doctors do these days? They run in, pat you on the back, try to find an excuse to write a prescription, and then run out. That's not good medicine. And it's very difficult if you're a doctor and you're in that kind of practice, it's very difficult to slow down, reconfigure, get off that treadmill, get your patients off that treadmill, and actually start having a conversation about your health. So that's a little bit of an update on that program. I'm going to skip over the stress test discussion and go straight to our short form content. Most weeks, especially now that we've got more and more content that we're wanting to cover, we have a short form, then we'll have the long form. Today, the short form is very much related to the main topic. It's, everybody likes, well, not everybody, but supplements are very, very popular. Everybody, it's sort of like prescription medications for a lot of people. They feel like if I can just take a supplement, I'm going to be healthier. It's the easy way. It's, maybe I can't lose weight. Maybe I can't control my carbs. Maybe I don't want to work out, or I don't have the discipline to do that. But I can just buy a pill, whether it's a prescription pill or a supplement, and I'm going to be healthy. Well, one of those pills was just credited for killing somebody. Her name is Loretta McClintock. She was 61 years old. She was found unresponsive on December 15th. There was a partially intact white mulberry leaf found in Miss McClintock's stomach. The coroner's report stated that the cause of death was dehydration from stomach inflammation, and white mulberry will do that. The FDA monitors dietary supplements, but they're categorized as food, not medicine. Again, we're getting into an area where David Meinz has a lot of expertise and can give us some background. Any comments about that before we go into the discussion for today, David?
Well, that's right. Back in 1994, Congress passed something called the DSHEA Act. That stands for the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act. And it was a response to the Food and Drug Administration wanting to get more involved with the supplement world and protect consumers. And obviously the supplement industry didn't want government intervention, and a lot of consumers didn't either. So America wrote more letters to Congress about staying off of their supplement accessibility than any other issue than the Vietnam War. Congress got more letters on this one issue than anything else other than on the Vietnam War. So when it works right, it is supposed to work that way. Congress is supposed to do what America says. America just doesn't say it often enough. So they did this time, and they backed off and they compromised with the supplement industry. And basically now the supplement industry is self-regulated. They are not like the pharmaceutical industry that has to go through years and years of testing and multi-million dollars. If the supplement company wants to produce a weight loss product or a muscle building product or whatever and make it out of guinea pig brains, all they have to do is put it in a capsule, get it distributed to stores, and it can be available in a couple of weeks. There's no government oversight on any of that for effectiveness or for safety. It's something interesting. A study that was done, a survey was done. Half of all Americans believe that the federal government, the Food and Drug Administration, has to approve supplements. Half of America believes that. And it's absolutely not true. There's no regulation. A third of physicians believe that the Food and Drug Administration has to approve supplements before they're on the market. A third of physicians do. So that's clearly a misconception of what's going on. It's the Wild West out there. From my presentation today, from our comments, you'll see that I believe in supplements. I take supplements. But a lot of people think if it's on the market, it must be safe. Well, this lady right here that we just saw, that wasn't the case for her. The things, you know, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of supplements. The ugly really are the herbal supplements, the botanicals. A lot of people don't realize that's where we got some of our earlier medicines. That's where we invented some of our earlier medicines, because those botanicals and herbs are powerful and they do work, but in unregulated situations, they can kill you too. So there's very good, and I'm going to talk about the good today, but there's some bad too.
I appreciate you bringing that up, David. I was going to say they'll hear a lot of cautionary tales today. And if you just heard that, you might think this group is anti-supplement. We're not. I use a lot of supplements too. In fact, but there's balance needed. And two of the most common, most powerful supplements that I recommend most often also have a significant risk profile as well. One of them being niacin. It's got a risk profile in terms of liver damage. The other one being vitamin D3. And I've done several videos on patients that came to me. They took these, you may not have seen the videos, David, but I'll get this occasionally, where somebody will take one of these vitamin D3 preparations, 25 or 50,000, which are made to take on a weekly basis, and they're taking them daily. And so I've had people come in with a vitamin D3 level of 135. One of the first ones I covered actually had significant acute kidney damage at the time she came to see me. We stopped the vitamin D and continued to monitor her kidney function, and it popped right back up. So she ended up doing well. A lot of folks that overdosed on vitamin D didn't. I know some physicians who were involved in cases where people died from taking too much vitamin D. Another quick comment I'll make is that people might ask, you don't hear a lot about white mulberry. White mulberry is supposed to help for prediabetes as well as cholesterol management. It's similar to berberine and a couple of the others that seem to have, or that are at least attributed to have some impact in both of those areas. Any comments from either one of you before we get into today's topic?
Yes,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm just gonna say hi to everyone. I haven't had the chance to meet everyone face to face, but right here we are. And yes, just coming back to some comments from Dr. Ford, to the future projects, the chronic care management program, which is one thing that is soon to be available for all those with Medicare and that are eligible to that. And just a reminder about the Spanish content project as well. We're looking forward to make available more of this life-saving information on Spanish language, because we do know that there are a lot of people on the US and outside who speak Spanish, and that they don't have access to this kind of information with their physicians. So that's something that we're very excited to be working on as well.
Very good point. I'm totally forgot about that, Jesus. Thank you for reminding me. That's a big deal. There's a huge Spanish-speaking population. I have spoken a little bit of Spanish in the past, but not enough to be able to carry that kind of load. Obviously, Jesus has a Spanish accent. You can tell Spanish is his original language. And he's going to be spearheading a project where we make this available. It was very interesting. One of our first 9 volunteers for the Medicare CCM program, turns out, spends half of their time in the United States, half their time in Mexico. They're originally Spanish speaking. And that person said, hey, you know what? I'm very passionate about this, but I need to tell you that, are you aware of the extent of this problem in Mexico and Spanish-speaking Americas? And the answer was yes. You know, I lived for about 3 years in San Antonio, and huge impact with metabolic syndrome, which was the term at that point in time. And so we're very excited. We've already converted, about a dozen of our articles, our blog articles, into Spanish. We need to clean those up, though, do some editing on those. And Jesus and I are still trying to figure out whether or not we're going to be able to have me hablando en español.
And Ford, I would also just mention that in case you expand beyond the Spanish world, I took 4 years of German, just so you know that.
Oh, Dankeschön.
So in case you go for Europe, just give me a call.
We will remember that, David. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'll let you with the program. It was happy to see everyone. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week with David.
Yes. Very good. We're going to have to get that audio cleaned up because you're still coming in and out. Thank you. Hey,
sorry about that.
That's okay.
See you next week.
See you.
Well, Ford, if I can just mention that the size of the supplement industry in America, it's last year was $43 billion just in the United States. $43 billion spent on supplements. What's interesting is some of the research that's been done is the people that need them most don't take them. The people that need them the least are the ones that are most likely to take supplements. So there's a lot of money being spent that probably could be spent in different places. I will tell you too that this DSHEA Act I was talking about really back in 1994 was a back and forth between the industry and government. And basically, I think consumers won. I would say that because they got freedom to choose what they want. But at the same time, it became very unregulated, and there's some potential for some problems. One of the compromises that happened was, if you've got people watching right now, if you've got any supplement in your house, you will see in very small print, I'm going to read it right here. It says, this statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. That's government and industry double talk at its best. That's exactly why you're taking this, is to cure, diagnose, treat, or prevent a disease. That's why you're taking this. And so that was a compromise from the supplement industry to the government to get the DSHEA Act passed back in 1994. But I want you to realize that that's awfully small print and hardly anybody reads it.
It's a good point. You know, there was another point that you already brought up that I wanted to emphasize, and that is there are some. I've spent a good bit of time going back because of the popularity, going back and looking at the true science behind a lot of supplements. As a result of that, I've actually started taking a lot more supplements than I ever took. Because there is some good evidence behind a lot of different supplements. Another point that you brought up, which I think is very interesting, people will say this all the time on the channel. I hate statins. Statins are going to kill me. I'm going to take something natural, like red rice yeast. Or is it red yeast rice?
I
Red
never
rice.
did that either.
I always screw that up. And so my response to them is, wait a minute, think about that. And quite often, unfortunately, very unfortunately, I'll find people taking both prescription statins and red rice yeast.
Yeah.
Now, or red yeast rice. So if you go back, the original statin, I think it was Hadacall or something like that, was made directly from red yeast rice. Red rice yeast. I should have checked this before the show today.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it coming up. And we've got much better statins now. Safer, better controlled, easier, gentler. And yet so many people say just the opposite. I want to go safe, easy, because it's natural. So therefore it's safer and easier. No, think about it. Maybe not.
You know, hemlock is natural as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will, if I can, start out with just a little history lesson here, since we wanted to talk about that as well. Vitamins have not been around that long, only about 100 years. This is one of the earliest products that was created by Rexall, if some of you remember Rexall drugs. And if you look at the spelling, they used to call them vitaamines, not vitamins. There's an extra E in there if you look, because they thought that these substances were proteins. And so they came up with the word vita, meaning life, amines, meaning protein. These were life proteins is what they were. And that's where the name came from, vitaamines. Did you know that, Ford?
I did not.
Yeah.
I think you probably told me once, but I'm very good at forgetting things.
Well, this is the kind of thing that nutritionists talk about at cocktail parties. All right. So that's the kind of thing you get to learn. Anyway, we've come a long way from that. And I think there's some interesting history. And Ford, if it's appropriate now, I'll just go back and show people a couple of my items.
Well, let me just say, I've toured the bunker with David, and I'm lying about the bunker. It's not an underground bunker. But it isn't a place that will remain hidden because of the value there. Now, how did that value get created? As you're beginning to see, you've got an individual in front of you who's not only a public speaker in health, he's very, very interested in the history, especially associated with nutrition and micronutrients. So when the rest of us have time off, we go play golf or something like that, David Meinz goes and finds a local pharmacy that's been shut down and starts rummaging through what's in that old shut down pharmacy for stuff like this. So he does have, this is just we'll only touch the surface of what he has. He does have a huge collection of very, very interesting information and gadgets and gizmos, and mostly in items that were used in pharmacies in the past to advertise supplemental products.
So I'm hoping that this interest goes beyond just somebody who's in dietetics like myself. I think you all will find it interesting, if not interesting, at least amusing. So I'm going to take my computer and go back and show you a couple of products here. You can just get an idea here of one of the rooms here in the museum. But we will start with a couple of products right behind me here. This product is called Hadacall. Hadacall was big in the 1940s and in the early 50s. And you can see there's a bottle of Hadacall right next to it. This was a vitamin supplement. However, it was about 12% alcohol, so 24% proof. And when people took this vitamin supplement, they really felt much better. They really didn't care so much about their aches and pains. And I'm not sure if it was the vitamins or maybe the alcohol content that was doing the job.
Let me interrupt for a second. So how does that compare to wine or beer?
I don't know what the comparison is. I think it's weaker. I think it's weaker than wine or beer.
What percent?
It's 12% alcohol, so that makes it 24% proof.
No, I'm pretty sure that's a little bit stronger than.
Is it?
Yeah, okay. I'll look that up. I'll do a fact check on you while you're talking.
So anyway, this was very popular in the southern part of the United States because it had many dry counties in the southern part of America back in the 30s and 40s. And so little old ladies would go to Baptist church on Sunday and then stop at the local drugstore on the way home. You could actually buy Hadacall in little shot glasses if you didn't want to commit to the whole bottle. And it really did take care of the rheumatism and other problems, at least temporarily. So that was fun. And go ahead.
David, before you go off, wine, typical wine is 24 proof or 12%.
Really? So it's like wine. Okay.
And beer is typically 10 proof or 5%.
Interesting. Okay.
So the little old ladies were getting a shot of it's like the wine.
I think it was the thiamine for it. I think that's what it was.
Oh, you think that's what it was? It was stronger than the beer.
Yeah. Thiamine is well known to take care of all kinds of problems. So I got a couple of other things here I'll show you all just for fun here. This, I also like quack weight loss items. This is weight loss soap from the 1930s. Let me sit down so I can open this up for you. This is weight loss soap. Now, let's see if I can get you a good shot here. There we go.
There you go.
You can see how big she was and how thin she got. You know, they can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. There's the proof right there. So this is weight loss soap. And on the inside are the actual 3 original bars of weight loss soap. You'll notice these two are mint perfect condition. This one was used once or twice. I figured the lady lost all the weight she needed. She did not need to use these two. That's what my opinion is of that product right there. Let me show you another thing here too that I think very interesting. Let me see if I can aim it here. Yep. I'm trying.
We're going to see if we can get a little bit better way of doing this next time.
This is, here we go. Good. This is trim reducing aid cigarettes. These are cigarettes to help you lose weight. I want to show you the bottom line here if you all can read that. It says not intended to replace your favorite cigarette nor to change your present smoking habits. So we wouldn't want to interfere with your current smoking habits. This is in addition to. So those are trim reducing aid cigarettes, and that was available back in the 1950s. Now, if you took this too far and you took too many vitamins and you took too much weight loss, well, they actually had a product for people back then called Weight On. You could actually put weight on again because nobody wanted to be skinny back then. For some reason, this product is no longer available in America. It might have to do with lack of marketing. Anyway, Weight On was a product as well. Those are just a couple of samples of some of the things. Oh, I will show you one more thing. This is back here. This right here is a display for cereal that had vitamins added to it. This was a big deal back in the 1940s. Now, cereal today has vitamins added. Everybody knows that. But this display back in the 1940s was introducing vitamin ring. Quaker was the first company to actually figure out how to add vitamins to their Quaker puffed wheat and puffed rice. And this was a display, and it's marked 1940. Pretty rare piece, but the lesson that it teaches is that a lot of times today you're going to find that many manufacturers are creating a pretty useless product made out of white flour, sugar, processed carbohydrates that doesn't have much nutritional value going for it, but they add supplements to it to make it have some legitimacy. That goes on all the time today. So that's not new. That started way back a long time ago.
Let me interrupt again. So that's, I'm assuming that's the predecessor and same company as the group that makes Quaker Oats today.
Yeah, it's the same company.
So one of the most common, again, for those of us who think, well, that's history, that's not going on anymore. One of the most common things that I hear when I start getting into, okay, you've got insulin resistance. It may not have been poison to you when you were in your 20s, but eating too many carbs today is poison to your body. It's damaging your arteries. And we start going through that. Okay, that's kind of theoretical. And then, wait a minute, you're telling me I can't eat oatmeal for breakfast? I used to get so hung up in that discussion and debate, and I don't even debate it anymore. What I say now is, okay, I'm not going to debate that. All I'm going to do is say, take your, get a blood sugar or use a Libre and watch your blood sugar before you eat a bowl of oatmeal and after you eat a bowl of oatmeal. So the point that I'm making is, even today, one of the strongest misperceptions is oats are good for your heart. Oatmeal is good for your heart. And they have continued to ride that train and still do. And they've got a lot of people eating their product based on that information.
A box of Cheerios right now in the grocery store, regular old-fashioned Cheerios, will say that very thing. And by the way, a rule that you must remember is whenever you do a broadcast, you can make the phone ring. The phone won't ring for days, but until you do a live broadcast. And that'll
what's happened. People are all seeing the information on the International Supplements Museum, and you're starting to get calls. That's got to be what's going on.
This is for the donations. Good. That's 1-800-DAVID. Please just make your donations there. So anyway, a box of Cheerios today will say that can help lower cholesterol or be good for heart health. What they don't tell you is they're talking about lowering blood cholesterol, which is almost an insignificant issue these days. But the average American still doesn't know that. But what they don't tell you is that you have to eat 3 cups of Cheerios to see that effect on your blood cholesterol. Most people aren't going to do that. And by the way, have you noticed in the grocery store, there's not one kind of Cheerios anymore. There's 8 or 9 different flavors of Cheerios now. And that's just marketing. That's just expanding on a brand. That's good capitalism. But chocolate flavored Cheerios is going in the wrong direction.
It really is. And I'm glad you brought up that point. It's not because there's no science. Clearly, there is science saying, yep, it helps your LDL a little bit. Unfortunately, that science is a little bit misdirected.
It is. And Ford, I will say that I'm still eating some oatmeal now and then. But as you know, and the audience doesn't know, I've taken maybe 25 pounds off. I've got my insulin resistance under control, more or less. And inflammation is great. And my CIMT is 2 years younger than my chronological age. And it wasn't always that way. So would you agree that if you intervene, you might be able to eat some oatmeal in the future if you do some other things right?
Oh, yeah. One of the things that we do, first of all, before I say this, well, let me say this first. One of the things that we do is talk about how you manage your glycemia, the blood sugar, the sugar in your blood. And that's not always exactly just your what you eat, but sometimes it's the combinations of what you eat. We have a lot of people that say, you know what, I have eaten oatmeal for so many decades. That's my habit. I don't want to change it. And then we'll say, well, you know what do you think about adding a little more butter, decreasing the amount of oatmeal just a little bit, eating it with a couple of eggs or bacon, putting peanut butter in there. A lot of people respond very well to putting peanut butter in there. All of those things are going to add a little bit of fat and protein and slow down that glycemic impact. Meaning glucose and emia meaning blood. So we're not so much concerned about what it looks like on the plate. We're concerned about what it's doing to your blood sugar. The second thing I'm going to say is, well, you must have had a very good doc to help you get where you are today.
I just looked up at the yellow pages, just all I did. Some people don't even know what the yellow pages are.
Yeah, that's true.
So Ford, I've got a little video segment. As you know, I have spent the last year creating a new online video course, almost 14 hours worth, divided into about 12 modules. It's called 10 Bonus Years, how you can add 10 healthy years to your life. And we have a little video segment on vitamins. If you think this is an appropriate time, we'll help Gilbert play that.
Sure. Gilbert, are you ready?
For good health, every diet must contain the right amounts of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, minerals, water, and vitamins. The human body is not much of a vitamin maker, so it must get supplies of them from outside sources. We must have vitamins to promote normal growth, maintain good health, and to prevent disease. Vitamins are catalysts, not cure-alls. Usually, the symptoms of vitamin inadequacy are vague and ill-defined. If you don't feel well, don't attempt self-diagnosis. See your physician. It's possible to get enough vitamins from a proper diet, but few of us regularly follow such diets. The vitamins in vitamin supplements are essentially the same as the vitamins in foods. Overcooking may destroy some vitamins. Often, vitamins are thrown away in the water their foods are cooked in. Foods, like people, vary widely. No two are exactly alike or contain the same amounts of anything, including vitamins.
Here's the bottom line on supplements. We're now understanding that certain nutrients, like the omega-3s and vitamin D, can have actual beneficial effects far beyond just preventing vitamin deficiencies. What's now called nutraceuticals, such as these two, are nutrients that are used for specific health improvement purposes. We've still got a lot to learn, but this is a legitimate field of intervention. In general, first try to improve the quality of the food you eat. Eat food closer to the way it grows. Eat less processed foods. Today, many food manufacturers are adding vitamins to their products. It gives them the appearance of having a health benefit. In fact, these are often highly processed foods made with white flour, sugar, colors, and artificial ingredients that have little nutritional value other than from the added vitamins in the product. Products like the popular beverage vitamin water is just water with several vitamins added along with flavors, fructose, and sugar. It's a product of Coca-Cola and contains the equivalent of 7 teaspoons of sugar per bottle. A 12-ounce can of Coke has 9 teaspoons of sugar per bottle. I've noticed a lot of people drinking vitamin water as part of their so-called healthy lifestyle. Remember, real food doesn't need to have vitamins added to it. While you have lots of choices when it comes to supplements, the Super 7 we talked about are among the most important. Again, those are a multiple vitamin mineral, specifically for your sex and age, calcium, vitamin D3, vitamin K, the omega-3s DHA and EPA, magnesium, and vitamin C. And remember to use supplements as supplements, not replacements for responsible eating. Eating junk food with a one-a-day vitamin isn't going to do you much good. Having said all this, I personally take supplements, but I also eat a good quality diet as well, most of the time.
Vitamins are insurance for continued good health and well-being if you get enough. Thank you, and goodbye, folks.
So
David, just a question. How were you able to move like that? It looked like was that a sideways moonwalk or something?
Well, where are you talking about? When?
In the video, whenever you're getting ready to show something on the side, your body just moves right over there without you appearing to take a step.
Yeah, in addition to my German, I took several years of roller skating lessons. So that's basically how I do that. I will tell everybody that's watching that that's just a little one lesson out of about 14 hours. We just wanted to show that because it's appropriate to the topic today. I'm happy to I have got a series of 7 of those mini lessons for anyone that would like that. Gilbert, I think you can put up my contact information, and anybody that would like that series of 7 videos for the 10 bonus years program, complimentary, just email me at david@davidmeinz.com and we'll send you that series. They'll come out every couple of weeks or so. You'll enjoy that. So anyway, you see that I really am interested in history in the past. I don't live in the past, but I do visit there quite often. And I've integrated some of these old vintage video commercials, footage from the 1940s and 50s and 60s into my online learning program, just to break it up, to make it a little bit more fun. And I think a lot of people are going to enjoy that as opposed to just a talking head for 14 hours. I think it's turned out really good. It's, I think, the best thing I've ever created.
And you're a totally unbiased observer, right?
My mom agrees with me.
So let me tell you, as we discussed earlier, one of the more popular components of the show is the Q&A. So, and unless you have something else you'd like to cover, I'd like to go ahead and respond to some of the questions.
Yeah, that's fine.
Gilbert? So, shout out for a couple of for a new premium member, MMMT Big. Thank you so much for joining the membership. Dwight Baldwin, do people ever take GLP-1s and SGLT2s? Those are the 2 drug classes that are coming out that are just major blockbusters. Medical science and even the government has finally figured out that medicines, the big thing, the important thing about diabetes is not the diabetes itself, it's what it does to our cardiovascular system. And so now the FDA requires what they call CVOTs, cardiovascular outcome trials. By the way, some of the old drugs, most commonly insulin, forms of insulin, score terribly on the CVOTs, cardiovascular outcome trials. However, there are some other drug classes, especially the 2 new ones, SGLT2s and GLP-1s, are just each, every quarter or 6 months, a new blockbuster piece of information is coming out, evidence showing that, yes, these drugs are preventing events, disease, death, disability. Now, it's interesting. I've got a lot of patients that, despite having significant diabetes, rarely get up to 120 because they're just not eating carbs and they're keeping their weight down, their body fat down, and they're doing really good work. Now, for those kind of people, the question is, okay, well, you still have, these drug classes, like other every drug class, especially prescription drugs, have risks. Those risks remain, but and clearly their benefits are less than for a crowd in a study where they're not watching their lifestyle that way. Does it make sense for those folks? I think the jury's still out on that. I would fit in that category. I have elected to start taking one of the SGLT2s, the Ozempic. And it was after the first time I took it, I committed to where, you know what? all of the other stuff, whether none of that CVOT trials existed or not, I was going to continue to take it. Had nothing to do with my weight, everything to do with sleep. It has had a huge impact on my ability to sleep. Now, you don't see that when you look at the information on the GLP-1s. All they talk about is weight loss and some about diabetes. But as you get a little bit deeper, and we did a few weeks ago cover some of the information that's coming out about GLP-1s and sleep. Very interesting new science coming out. ET himself, good morning. I think that might be Pacific Standard Time. Bobby Ocampo, Mabuhay, Magandang Buhay. Happy life, beautiful life. Have a good life, beautiful life. David, you may not be aware, that is that Dipalog? Is that the name of that? Is that the language, Gilbert?
Philippines, Doc.
I realize it's Philippines, but what's the name of the language?
Tagalog, Doc.
Tagalog. Say that again.
Tagalog.
Tagalog. Thank you very much. And I hope I didn't butcher the meaning very much, but thank you so much, Bobby. Bobby lives, I think Bobby's an expat in the Philippines. Or Ruth in the Middle East speaks a little bit of a language she knows. Shalom alaikum, I think. Hopefully that's correct. Or Ruth, and for you, Bobby Ocampo, see if you know this. Mabuhay. No, Mayong Gabi. Well, not sure what that is. What is Gilbert? What is Mayong Gabi?
Doc, it's Aspen. It's a Visayan word. It's a good evening.
Oh, good. Very good. Thank you so much, Aspen. I thought it sounded like Aspen. We had a little bit of change in the background. Yeah, good evening in a different Filipino language. Okay. It's 5 where you are in the Middle East. And good morning. Let's see if we can get Dwight Baldwin. Thanks for what you do to help people, Dr. Brewer. I knew there was a supplement question down here, and that's Moon and Back Mommy. Hello, Doc. How many supplements is too much? I take 8. D3 and K2, and I'm assuming that's one of the combination preparations. Zinc, omega-3, B12, berberine, benphthiamine, iodine. I don't have any medical diagnoses yet. My efforts are preventive. David, I'll give a quick start on what I've seen. You know, there's some interesting evidence and studies that have come out. Up until about 5 years ago, all the studies on the general vitamins, it's like, you know, you showed one of them before, men's, multivitamins.
Yeah.
Up until about 5 years ago, all the evidence in that space really didn't show anything. And then there was something that came out a couple of years ago that showed, oh, well, maybe there is some positive impact. One of the things I would say about that is I personally have been back and forth on multivitamins. And I think it's it's an impractical expectation to think that there will be any study that comes out where it says, here's a population that took a multivitamin, a population that didn't. These guys lived longer and healthier than those guys. There's just too many variables in that space. And here's one thing that you need to remember. As important as cardiovascular disease is just by itself, it's still less than 1/3 of deaths. So you could totally wipe out cardiovascular disease in our population, and the majority of deaths are still going to happen. and far more than the majority of disabilities. So if something is alone by far the most common, that still doesn't mean it is the only cause. So that's one epidemiological concept that we all need to remember as we get into this debate about multivitamins. David, do you have some comments?
So there's a couple of meta-analysis for those of you that are not familiar with the term, a review of a lot of studies, and they often help define an issue or help settle an issue when you do a meta-analysis of something, of a lot of different studies. And they found that multiple vitamin mineral products do not decrease heart disease or cancer rates, do not. It was pretty definitive. This was out, I don't know, 5 years or so ago. But my response to that is that's fine. I have so many other things we can do to decrease cardiovascular disease and cancer risk. We don't have to be looking at multiple vitamins to do that. That, like Ford says, is an unrealistic expectation of multiple vitamins. They're designed for something else. In my opinion, they're designed to make up for this hectic lifestyle that so many of us have today, where we just don't eat like we should, especially if you're like me and Ford and maybe eat twice a day. Your nutritional choices become even more important, and you have less flexibility for so-called junk food if you're only eating twice a day. Everything you eat's got to be pretty highly nutritious. So I think there's a place then for multiples to fill in those gaps, those holes. But I never took my multiples to prevent heart disease. I got my blood sugar under control, and I got my inflammation under control to help control my heart disease risk. And cancer, about 50% of cancer risk is lifestyle related. Being overweight, eating processed foods, lack of exercise, all of those are increase your risk of cancer. So if I could put a pill together that would be called lifestyle, I'd win a Nobel Prize because I could cut cancer rates by 50%. So I'm not depending on my multiple vitamins to do those two jobs of the two big killers.
Very good point. I'm going to add a couple of very specific points as well. The way you've listed it, Moon and Back, I'm assuming you're taking a D3 and K2 preparation where you put them together. I'm actually a big fan of both D3 and K2. The evidence is not nearly as clear for K2. The urban myth is that it, quote, takes calcium out of your arteries and puts it in your bones where it should be. I don't think that's what's going on. I think it's having an impact on insulin resistance. And we covered that in our long form content just a couple of weeks ago. As one of my patients pointed out, very smart patient, well, it's a small study. I would agree. There are no large studies yet that are that definitive on K2. There are a few studies like I think it was the Amsterdam study, but again, I don't think they were looking at the right thing, and I don't think they get to the heart of the matter. Another comment I'll make about D3 and K2, even though I'm a big fan of both, I don't take them together. None of the preparations really, linking them in one preparation links your dosage and your proportion. I think that we're much closer to an appropriate dosage of D3. If you look at D3, I recommend that people basically say, okay, I'm going to assume that I need some supplementation there, and I'll take 5,000 international units, not 5,000 micrograms, 5,000 international units, and I'm going to test, which gets into another phrase we use all the time, test, don't guess. And this is clearly an area where you need to do that. And then look for levels at least 40. I prefer 60 to 90. I get very nervous when they get over 90, because when you go into the science and the evidence, the deaths due to overdose from vitamin D3 start occurring. Usually about 105, 110, and clearly 115 and above. That's where you start seeing them.
And Ford, I would just interject there that if you go to a general physician these days and you have a vitamin D level of 30, they're going to say everything is fine.
Yeah. There's been, even in the US, there's been a significant change in the literature. And I'm glad you brought that up. Just a couple of weeks ago in the New England Journal, the quote definitive article came out about vitamin D3, and it said, no, it's not any good. Slow down, wait a minute, take a look at that. Take a look at what they mean by, for example, appropriate levels. Not so clear and not so fast. So I'm a big fan of the New England Journal, but again, sometimes I think they're not perfect either. And I don't think this article that came out a couple of weeks ago criticizing D3 was the greatest article. I'm still taking D3. I'm still recommending it. Now, let me continue that comment about mixing D3 and K2 in the same pill. Typically, what you'll see is D3, 2,000 international units, and K2, 100 micrograms. If you're taking K2, 100 micrograms is probably way too little. Any of the studies that have actually looked at this looked at 300 to 400 micrograms minimal. And here's the other thing to think about. K2 is not like D3. It's not dangerous in the higher doses. In fact, if you go to some place like Amazon, you can find some really good groups like Life Extension, what is it, Jarbo, Doctor's Best, several other really good brands giving mega dose K2. Why? Because mega dose K2 has been shown to be very helpful for those of us with osteoporosis. What is mega dose?
Mega doses are routinely given in Japan as routine therapy.
Right.
Mega dose levels.
And megadose levels is 45 milligrams as opposed to micrograms. So a level of 50 to 150 times higher than these normal doses that you see. When I take it, by the way, I take either the megadose or a 400 milligram, a couple of 200, micrograms, I'm sorry, not milligrams. I'll also take, speaking of Japan, I also take a Korean supplement that I get on Amazon. It comes and the label's all in kanji, and it's natto. So several comments about that. We've got a lot more comments. I'd love to talk more about that, but let's get to some of the others. Brendan Lenane, generic rosuvastatin made me very ill, while Crestor did not. I was told it was due to excipients. Supplements are full of additives, a concern when you swallow 20 or more per day. I avoid fish oils. There's a lot of people that avoid fish oils because they say, especially the ways of getting fish oils are, allow it to oxidize. It's nasty. It's the better option is plankton. But then when we're using plankton oils, it's not plankton. What's the term I'm looking for, David?
Algae.
Algae. When you're using those oils, you're having a negative impact on the environment. I use regular old fish oils. I don't have quite the concern about the quality of those that you see with a lot of people on the internet. David, I see you getting ready to say something.
Well, this is what we do know. The toxins like mercury in fish attach to the protein of the fish, the meat of the fish. They do not attach to the oil of the fish. So over and over again, researchers have looked at contamination of fish oil pills for mercury, for example, and it's not there. Yes, you can get mercury from eating fish, but it's not in the fat. It's in the muscle tissue of the fish. So at least on that one issue, we're not finding any mercury or those kind of toxins in fish oil supplements.
Very good point. I want to make a comment about mercury, but I will move on. Somebody has an interesting ask me later. Bobby Ocampo, I consulted a certified nutritionist in one of the big hospitals here in the Philippines, but she is proposing 300 grams or more of carbs, not to include fructose in fruits. And as you might imagine, diabetes and prediabetes is also a big deal in the Philippines, a very, very carb-laden diet there. But you know what? If you see a dietitian here in the United States, you're likely to get the same thing. David, you want to share any of the discussions you and I have had, earlier debates about carbs?
Yeah.
And what the standard nutritionists will tell you?
Well, sure. I know I don't look like it, but I graduated 43 years ago with my master's degree in nutrition. And for almost all of that time, I was teaching what the federal government taught us, what I learned in graduate school, you know, the food pyramid. On the base of the food pyramid, if you all remember, is carbohydrates, breads, cereals, pastas, etc. It's the foundation of a good diet. That's what we were taught. I suppose that's okay if you're 20 years old. But what I've learned from Ford and others is that as we get older, your body's ability to metabolize carbohydrates is not as good as it was when you were younger. Well, I was a dietitian speaking around the country for the last 30 years or so. And my weight got up to about 191 pounds at 5'11". That was no good. That was too high. No one wants to listen to a fat dietitian. So I had to change something. And fortunately, I met Ford, and I resisted him at the beginning because I didn't know who this guy was. And besides, he was telling me the opposite of what all my professors told me for so many years, that a good diet is based on carbohydrates. I mean, look at the Mediterranean diet, for example. They're fine. And look at all the bread they eat. So I just had to do it by personal experience. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a chance. We'll try this out. And so I did two things. I started eating in a window of about 6 to 8 hours. I still do that for about 3 years now. And I let my pancreas rest. I let my cells rest from being bombarded with insulin all the time. And I was tested. I had insulin resistance. I couldn't believe that I, of all people, would have insulin resistance, but I did. And I lost 24, 25 pounds over about 6 months period. And my blood sugar numbers improved and my inflammation markers improved. And I'm healthier now. And I don't eat a lot of carbs. I eat some carbs. I don't promote ketosis. It's an unnatural metabolic state. I don't think you should try to live that way. So I do eat carbs. I don't count them, but I probably eat 50, 60 grams of carbs a day. But I probably was eating 100 to 150 grams of carbs in the past. So I've dramatically cut them down, and I think I'm healthier because of it.
That's a tough pills for an expert like a nutritionist to swallow, isn't it?
It was.
No pun intended.
No.
One of the things I would share for you that reminds me of a video I was watching, Dr. Annette Bosworth, Dr. Boz. Have you heard of her or seen her?
No.
She does great work in terms of helping people lose tons of weight, teaching people the details of the keto diet. I'm a big fan. She recently shared her own hemoglobin A1C going up to the mid 5s. And it was an interesting video. There was a lot of mea culpa. I'm snacking too much. I'm getting too many bites of my husband's desserts. I'm chewing too much gum. But she didn't bring up one thing, and you didn't mention it either with yours. And this is the biggest thing that I see more than anything else. Yes, we can change our body weight, but we can't change our age. And Dr. Boz did mention she was getting into her 50s. And guess what? No matter how good you are at managing all of the other stuff with lifestyle, as we get into our 50s, aging is the most powerful. And even in this age of obesity, aging is still the most common risk factor for taking us all into insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes. Very good discussion. Thank you so much. Bobby Ocampo, can we use low dose 5 milligram isosorbide dinitrate or mononitrate to get advantage of nitric oxide. I haven't seen that, Bobby. You know, theoretically, you would think you could. I think the biggest question there, though, is side effects. If you can handle that. D. Dutton, my homocysteine is elevated. How much TMG, trimethylglycine, is safe to take? David, are you familiar with either of these things?
No.
So we talked about homocysteine. It's been noticed many times in the past that elevated homocysteine is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. I mentioned it earlier in the intro today. Now, what has become clearer is that elevated homocysteine is actually a marker, a biomarker for elevated or for problems with methylation. You're probably a poor methylator. So Dee Dutton has already figured that out, and she's taking trimethylglycine, or it's also known as betaine or betaine. So it has a simple methyl group with the hydrogens. 3 of the hydrogens have another methyl group as a replacement. So it's actually just 4 little methyl groups there in one little molecule. I take trimethylglycine. I get it in a large thing like I do my natto, and that's what I put in my coffee in the morning. I'm sorry, Dutton, I don't remember the dosage. I'm really bad at remembering dosages. My brain is one of those brains that takes a number and just pushes it out of the way for the first 750 times. And then at time number 751, I might start remembering. But the other question I would have is that most of us take the methylated B vitamin complex. Part of the reason for that is poor methylators, all of us use the B vitamins as a pool to store and use methyl groups in our methylation process. And David, what this has to do with is oxidation. You're familiar with in the Bale-Deneen community, they talk about a lot about oxidation, combination with oxygen. Well, you go back to basic chemistry and basic engineering, the opposite of combination, or the way to calm down or antidote for combination with oxygen or oxidation, is called reduction. Or you can add and that you do that usually with adding a hydrogen group, or the body does it by adding a methyl group. That's why we're having all this discussion about trimethylglycine, methyl groups, vitamin B, methylated vitamin B complexes. Another place that you may hear this is the term poor methylators. And sure enough, like I mentioned, Z-Dog said, yeah, it exists. The science is there, but no, it's not significant. Yeah, it's not significant if you're already in the ICU. Any other comments about that? If not, I will move on. Todd Smith, one other thing I kept meaning to mention. One of the reasons this is important is the MTHFR. That's what's causing this problem. Methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. That's the enzyme that our body uses for this. And here's the issue. Over half of us have impaired ability to do that. Or you could turn it around the other way and say, only a small group of us, like 25 to 30%, have optimized ability to manage methyl groups such that our bodies manage this oxidation. You mentioned a couple of antioxidants in your Super 7, and I would debate some of the Super 7 with you at some point, one of them being the vitamin C. It's a well-known antioxidant. And if you look, David, how many billion did you say was in this market now?
I think it was 48 billion, something like that a year.
What is your guess? Out of that 48 billion, what portion of those would you think are antioxidants?
D is the #1 selling supplement today. D is.
Yeah. which is rightly so. A, C, and E are the major antioxidants.
Yeah, C is up there, but A and E would not be up there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a quarter or a third, because everybody's so focused on antioxidants. And I think that it's not just the uniform, but they're clearly so much a part of the multivitamins. Well,
I'm surprised D is number one, frankly. I'm surprised at that.
Well, it really got a big boost during the pandemics. A lot of the conservative distributors of medical science, like Harvard, Mayo Clinic, others, kept coming out with, it's really demonstrating some positive impact during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it got a big help. Anyhow, what I was going to point out is all of this focus on antioxidant vitamins, really, you could go back if you want to. It's the people that like supplements that are so focused on do it the natural way. A, C, and E aren't doing antioxidants the natural way. The natural way for doing reduction, methylation, antioxidation is methylated B vitamins and TMG, as D. Dutton is bringing up. So great bunny hole to trip into, D. Dutton. Thank you so much for bringing it up. So Todd Smith, I'm the same like Moon and Back, Mommy above. I take the same supplements and moringa. Also take chia, hemp, seed, and flax meal daily in my smoothies, along with my daily supplements. Any comments, David?
I would just say that if you're taking flaxseed meal for a laxative purpose, that's a good one. But if you're taking it for omega-3s, it's probably not very efficient. The body has the ability to use only about 10% of omega-3s coming from plants. It's called ALA, alpha linoleic acid. And the other two, EPA and DHA, are the main omega-3s that come from seafood. And your body loves those because those are the forms that your body uses already. It already has those. And so if you're taking that flax for an omega-3 purpose, I don't think it's a very efficient way of doing it. And I'd say the same thing when you're in the grocery store. Any product that promotes it has omega-3s in it, look carefully. And if it's ALA, or if it says it's from plant sources, that's mostly marketing. That's not nutrition.
I was trying to take a quick look, David, while you were talking about that. That brings up a whole different issue about omega-3s, especially when you break them down to ALA, EPA, and the other one. What's the third one again?
DHA.
So there's a group that just came out with a prescription strength omega-3. Do you remember? And it's EPA, all EPA. Do you remember the name of that?
No, I don't know who did that.
Having a senior moment, but I've used it a few times. That group saw some of my content on it and called me up. It's a big pharma group. A lot of the research was done with the head of cardiology at Harvard. And their point was, and they presented a good case to me, at least, of saying that, you know what, there may actually be some competition between DHA and EPA. So you really want to get EPA and you really want to not get DHA. They really didn't talk that much about ALA. Now that gets into debates with some of the other research that has come out in this space. I will tell you, again, they made a fairly good case pushing EPA more than the other two. But I still think the jury's out. People ask me, what's the best way to decrease my triglycerides? That's what the prescription, that's what the FDA has approved that prescription for.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, a prescription omega-3.
Correct.
Oh, I thought you meant a prescription EPA or something. And it has both, doesn't it? Have EPA and DHA, the prescription, Lavalo or Lavazo, something?
No, it's not Lavalo. Again, somebody will fact check me and correct me in a minute.
Okay.
But there were debates about those, about that with, I can't remember his name, the fellow at Mayo. And the bottom line is there's a good case, there's a good debate there. And just we need to all keep our eyes open on the EPA versus DHA subject within the omega-3s. One more thing.
Yeah, I would just say that the prescription fish oil has what it has going for it is that it has to meet the pharmaceutical standards that the supplement industry doesn't require. So you can be sure of the dosage in that omega-3 pill that you might not have that level of assurance if you're getting it from a health food store, if it's made as a supplement. So you have that, although I'm sure the price is higher as well, coming from the prescription perspective.
So it came to me and I checked it. Yeah, it's Vasepa, VASEPA.
Okay.
And here's part of and I should have remembered that, VASC for vascular and EPA for EPA. It's a purified EPA product. The one place I was going to go back to that I didn't make it to yet was people, it's mostly given for high triglycerides. And people ask, well, if they've got elevated triglycerides, what do they do for it? By far, the most important thing, as you and I've covered multiple times already, is lifestyle, and it's diet, and it's getting the carbs out of your diet. Carbs stimulate insulin, and insulin decreases our ability to burn fats or triglycerides. So if someone manages their carbs on a regular basis, that's the, again, most effective, best way to decrease your triglycerides. There are plenty of people that have significant triglyceride problems, and like anything else, there are plenty of times that folks need help. The times I've used Vasepa have been very successful. Bobby Ocampo, Moringa is called malunggay in the Philippines. Drax of the North. My cardiologist recently told me that taking omega-3 has no cardiovascular benefits. Would cod liver oil be a better option? Well, I know that David in his museum hasn't shown us this yet, but he's got some great advertising, old school advertisements, pharmacy advertisements for cod liver oil. And it's not just omega-3, is it, David?
No, it's also a huge source of vitamin A and D. And it's the A we're concerned about in cod liver oil. And you can get something called hypervitaminosis A, which is toxic. I do not recommend cod liver oil under any circumstances. It was given routinely 60 years ago before we knew any better. And it was a good source of A and D. But now today, for omega-3s, you can get that from the rest of the fish, not from its liver, which has got potentially too much vitamin A in it. So no to cod liver oil for your omega-3 source.
Very good. So it's vitamin D3. So you can overdose on cod liver oil, I'm assuming, from the vitamin D perspective, and A as well.
Yeah, A especially, yes.
We are getting close to time when I've got an appointment that I need to prep for. We've got limited time. We've got far less time than we do. At this point, it looks like we have at least 50 more questions. So there is, we try to for sure get to the ones where folks do a super chat. That's a contribution. It helps us get this content out across the world. And as you can see, it's popular. It's been getting out there, and it's been helping. I was telling David when I made some of the phone calls I made recently, I had 3 people in one day say, very heartfelt, you saved my life with the information on the channel. I guess when you hear that, that's not unusual to hear that, to have that kind of day. I feel very, very personally blessed to be able to make that kind of contribution. And, when you do that, it's fun to play golf and to travel, but it's far more fun to hear that you've had that kind of impact on people. David brought up a really good point. His point was, well, Ford, have you ever asked them what they're going to do with the rest of their life, that extra 10 years? And David actually has a book called 10 Years Extra. at some point, David, hopefully we can get a little bit deeper into that conversation, but it clearly convicted me in terms of starting to ask that.
That's actually not the book. It's the online program. It's not ready yet. It's going to be ready in about a month. 10 bonus years, how you can add 10 healthy years to your life. That's the sample videos that I'm offering to send people if they'll send me their emails to david@davidmeinz.com. Gilbert, if you can put that up again. I'll send out probably a series of 5 or 7 of those mini lessons from that big 12-hour program, 14-hour program. But it's not in a book form. I decided to go much more in depth, and we're doing an online learning system that people can subscribe to.
So tired looking for name. Dear Dr. Brewer, for lipid panel tests, it's recommended to have a last meal 12 to 14 hours prior to. What are the implications of fasting is more like 20 hours? For the most part, none. To fast a little bit more is even better. The things that really get screwed up with lack of fasting would be something like a fasting glucose and insulin levels. Both of those get really changed. Now, in the lipid space, you don't get so much change with HDL and LDL, although you can get a little bit. You do get a little bit more change. Triglycerides can bump up and down. And VLDLs. Most doctors don't go there in terms of calculating the what we call remnant cholesterol. And again, that's unfortunate because remnant cholesterol appears to be a bigger indicator of risk than either of the other two. Now, David, I'm about to turn into a pumpkin. I'm going to, again, great response. Had a lot of people on, a lot of questions. Do you have anything else?
I would just invite everybody to come back next week when Dr. Jesus and I will be talking about how to keep your brain healthy. And this is one of those topics that I talk about in my online program. So I thought I'd share some of that recent content that I've put together. And for whatever we can do, we'll try to meet Ford's standards and give you an entertaining and informative program at the same time.
Thank you so much, David. I do have to make before we go, one last tag. Ora Ruth Camiani says, forget it, Dr. Brewer, you're so American. I don't believe you can master another language. Sorry, I grew up multilingual, and I've seen that Americans have a really hard time with languages. I would say, es verdad, pero yo aprendiste español probablemente 30 años pasado, solamente 2 o 3 meses en Salamanca, España, pero curso intensivo y mi mujer estaba muy bien en hablando español solamente conmigo para 3 o 4 meses.
Wow.
Entonces, habla poquitísimo, tal vez un poco más que poquitísimo español.
So there you go, Ora Ruth. I was impressed. I don't know what he said, but I was impressed.
So maybe not your typical American response. Thank you so much for your interest today.